Finland is not just the land of lakes, endless forests, and merciless winters. It is a land where myth and nature intertwine at every turn. Unlike Christian demonology, Finnish myths rarely painted their beings as purely evil. Instead, they were seen as forces within the balance of nature itself, from spirits said to drag the careless into dark waters, to monsters so vast they were blamed for wars and plagues. Finnish folklore is crowded with legends, and tonight, we uncover 7 of those mythical creatures that belong to the living memory of Finland. Number 7. Ajatar. If COVID-19 had struck Finland centuries ago, people might not have spoken of bats, viruses, or pandemics. They would have whispered one name, Ajatar. Known as the grandmother of the devil, Ajatar was said to live deep in the dark forests of Karelia, spreading sickness and evil wherever she went. She was described with long, serpent-like hair, a tongue that slithered like a snake, and claws sharp enough to tear through flesh. In some version of the story, she also appears as a half-woman, half-serpent entity, a twisted blend of human and monster. But Ajatar's true power wasn't her form, it was her breath. She was believed to exhale disease itself, sending fevers through villages, leaving the healthy weak and the strong dead in days. In some legends, she appears dragon-like, breathing disease like fire, while in others she takes the form of a twisted woman, luring the curious into the woods only to plague them with suffering. Her story reflected the realities of a world without medicine. Epidemics wiped out families and entire communities, and with no explanation, so people personified the terror. Ajatar became the face of every plague, every mysterious fever, and every death that spread like wildfire. Of course, Ajatar was never real. No dragon woman breathed illness into the air, but her legend is a living proof of how humans turn fear into stories, and how, in the face of disease, we've always needed something to blame. Number 6. Naki. You probably remember the scene from the movie Jaws, where a girl swims alone at night, the water's calm, almost inviting. Then, without warning, she's yanked below the surface. She screams, thrashes, but the water swallows her whole. In Finland, this nightmare wasn't just a scene from a movie, it was a legend. They called it Naki, the water spirit that waited beneath bridges, ponds, and lakes. His descriptions vary a lot. Some say Naki was grotesque, slimy skin, hair tangled with weeds, teeth like hooks. Others said it could appear beautiful, even enchanting, luring victims closer with its face before pulling them down. In either form, the end was the same, drowning in cold silence. Parents once warned children never to play by the water's edge after dusk, for Naki might rise, seize them, and drag them into the depths. Across Scandinavia and Northern Europe, water spirits appear under many names. In Sweden and Norway, he is called Nak or Nukken and is often described as an old man with wild hair, sitting by the water's edge with a violin. In Germany, he appears as the Nix, while in England the tales evolved into the Nixie, all sharing that same theme of beauty, hiding deadly intent. But the concept behind Nekis in Finland run deep. With over 180,000 lakes, water in Finland was both life and danger. Folklorists say Naki wasn't just superstition, but a warning, and it made sense as, in the 19th century, drowning was one of the most common causes of death, and Naki was the fear of water, given a face. Even today, people on the internet still argue about them. Some even compare the Finnish Naki to a sort of formless water hobo, saying there are a lot of regional variations in the story. So maybe there was never a creature waiting beneath the surface, but when so many lives were lost to the water, it hardly mattered. Number 5, Louhi. At number 5 is Louhi. The legend of Louhi tells of her rule over Pohjola, a frozen land of darkness and bitter winds where the sun rarely rose. She was feared not just for her age and appearance, but for her unmatched command of magic. In the Kalevala, Finland's national epic poetry, she is described as a master sorceress and shapeshifter. Louhi could summon plagues, unleash armies, or transform into a giant eagle whose wings covered the sky. Her most famous role was as the guardian of the Sampo, a mysterious artifact that brought endless prosperity. Wars were fought over it, and Louhi defended it with curses, storms, and beasts of her own making. But Louhi wasn't always seen as a villain. In some stories, she was simply a matriarch protecting her land, a ruler whose power was feared by outsiders. Her name itself tied to the Finnish word for rock, carried the sense of something harsh, immovable, and unyielding. In this one comment, the user argues that indeed she was evil because she eventually tries to kill the heroes and the people of Kalevala that had nothing to do with the Sampo. To this date, no proof or evidence has ever shown that Louhi truly existed, yet her shadow endures, proving that some queens never needed a throne to be feared. Number 4. Iku Turso. Imagine standing on the rocky coast of Finland, staring into a sea so dark and endless it feels alive. Sailors once swore that beneath those dark waves they saw something strange. A beast with tentacles like roots of a drowned forest and eyes that burned in the night. They called it Iku Turso, the eternal terror. His appearance was never fixed, and that only made him more terrifying. Old songs gave him many names like Partalainen, the one who lives on the brink, or sometimes the bearded one, Tuonen Harka, the ox of death, Tuhatpa, the thousand-headed, and Tuhatsarvi, the thousand-horned. Each epithet painted him larger, darker, and stranger. Some even placed his lair in Pohjola, though that may be simply because Pohjola was imagined as the home of all evil. In some version of the story, Finnish also calls him the father of the diseases. In the Kalevala, Louhi, the witch queen of the north, is said to summon him from the depths. He rises in fury, scattering armies, cursing the land with plagues, and bringing storms so fierce they were remembered for generations. But who or what was Iku Turso really? To some, he was Finland's version of the Kraken, a personification of the sea's danger. To others, he was a symbol of war and disease. Number 3. Haltija. Not every being in Finnish folklore was a monster. At number 3, we find the Haltija, spirits that could guard, guide, or, if angered, bring misfortune. Of all the legends we have covered before, Haltija holds a different place. They were remembered as the guardians of places, homes, and even people tied so closely to nature that every forest, river, or household might have one watching over it. The belief in Haltija stretches back centuries, rooted in animism. The word Haltija comes from Haltija, meaning holder or possessor. These beings were believed to hold the essence of a place. So if you stepped into a place and instantly felt peace or unease, order or chaos, it was said to be the work of a Haltija. The most famous of them were the Tontu, household guardians who looked after families, barns, and livestock. Treat them well with offerings of food or drink, and they might protect your home. Neglect them, and things could quickly turn sour. Tools broke, crops failed, or cattle grew sick. But Haltija weren't limited to homes. There were Metsen Haltija, spirits of the forest, Veden Haltija, spirits of the water, even Ilman Haltija, guardians of the air. But is there any truth to Haltijas? Not really. Yet even today, when you enter a space and feel a sudden calm or an unshakable unease, it's hard not to wonder if something is still holding it. Number 2. Hiisi. Runner-up for the list today is Hiisi, a creature the Finns once believed haunted forests, caves, and rocky hills. Described as goblin-like tricksters, Hiisi were said to travel in groups, sometimes riding great elk or brandishing iron weapons. To meet one meant misfortune. Hunters lost their prey, travelers vanished in the woods, and sudden sickness or accidents were often blamed on Hiisi. But Hiisi wasn't always a monster. In pre-Christian Finland, the word Hiisi simply meant a sacred place, which could be anything, a grove, a hill, or even a burial mound where rituals took place. Archaeologists have linked the word to ancient cult sites, some dating back to the Iron Age. But around the 12th century, when Christianity began to spread in Finland, these once sacred sites were branded pagan, and the spirits tied to them were twisted into evil beings. What was holy became unholy, and Hiisi transformed from guardian spirits into creatures of fear. The echo of Hiisi is still alive in the Finnish language. The curse word Hiisi viekun, meaning may the Hiisi take it, remains a common expression, just like saying go to hell or damn it. Linguists trace this usage back hundreds of years, showing how deeply the myth embedded itself into daily life. Of course, skeptics argue that Hiisi were never literal creatures. Historians see them as symbols, a cultural artifact of shifting beliefs, where sacred pagan traditions were recast as demonic under Christianity. Number 1. Marras. Imagine living in a world where every sudden accident, every strange twist of fate was not random at all, but a shadow following you. That shadow was called Marras. In Finnish folklore, Marras was not really a creature, but the spirit of death, or more precisely, an omen of death itself. Its name runs deep across cultures, linked to the Indo-Iranian word marla and the Latin mors, both meaning death. In Karelia, the term was used for more than just a spirit. It could mean death, a dead person, or even an event that foretold death. What made Marras unique was its role as a warning. It wasn't a monster that struck you down, but a sign that the end was near. A sudden stroke of fortune, like catching an enormous haul of fish or inheriting a great sum of money, could be considered Marras at work. People believed that too much good luck often led to disaster, as though life itself demanded balance. The healthier and happier you seemed, the more vulnerable you were. To live in perfect health or fortune was to walk on the edge of Marras's shadow. In many ways, Marras was less about scaring people and more about reminding them. It carried the same weight as the Latin phrase goes, memento mori. Remember, you will die. Scholars suggest it was a way for Finns to process mortality in a world where sudden accidents, plagues, and wars were common. With no medical science to explain why the strongest could fall overnight, Marras became the story people told themselves, a spirit that reminded you to enjoy life while you still had it. Were Marras' warnings real? Probably not, because no spirit ever whispered death into someone's ear. But the belief that joy and death walk hand in hand, that shadow has never really left us. And that's the end of our journey through Finland's folklore. But myths don't stop at Finland's borders. If you thought these legends were strange, wait until you hear the ones from Japan, the UK, and the USA, because every land has its monsters, and some of them may not be myths at all.